As an investor, I used to think it was all about getting rich quick, about winning the lottery as an investor, and about making huge gains really, really quickly. But as I've got more sophisticated as an investor, I've realized there's three very simple things investors do on a daily, a weekly, and an annual basis that separate those that actually go on to achieve financial freedom and those that sit on the sidelines and talk shit for the rest of their lives and end up on the pension. So in today's video, I'm going to break down these habits of very sophisticated investors that I've met in my life personally. And I've talked to over 6,000 investors, and personally, along with my clients, bought over $300 million worth of property in Australia in the last 10 years. So these are some of the things that I've learned from those experiences. So the first thing that really sophisticated investors do on a daily basis is they learn. Now, whether you learn through podcasts, whether you learn through blogs, whether you learn from reading or listening to books, whether you watch video format content, whether you subscribe to a bunch of different emails and get those email updates, or whether you engage in newspapers or reports or specialized programs or documentaries and those sorts of things, there are just so many opportunities, more opportunities than you've ever had or we've ever had in the course of humanity to learn and to grow and to develop. And so, for a lot of people, the learning stops in different areas of their life after they finish school or TAFE or university. But as investors, we need to be constantly plugged in. So on a daily basis, I would personally be subscribed and updated from at least 5 to 7 different emails from influencers and people that I follow that may have a similar opinion to me, in many instances have very, very different opinions on investing than I do, so that I get a nice balance. On a daily basis, I always listen to some form of video or some sort of podcast, and at least 3 or 4 days a week I'll read some sort of white paper review or report or market update around the property space. So it is absolutely vital that as investors we plug into continuous learning for life. It's not good enough to just go out there and buy something and hope that it all works out for you. As an investor that's going to consistently beat market averages over the long term, you really need to plug into that daily learning. So find people that have a position that you would like for your future, whether that's financial independence or a lifestyle or a business or a type of investment that is working for them. Find someone that's been doing it long enough to have gone through the ebbs and the flows, not somebody who's all of a sudden got rich over a couple of years' time and now they're the absolute guru and they're sharing all of these lessons they've learned in an amazing upwards trajectory marketplace that, as soon as the market comes down, whether that's shares or commodities or whether that's property, all of a sudden they're left out there swimming naked. And follow people that are physically doing it for themselves, not just talking shit about going out there and doing it. So the second thing that I think is really important for you as an investor on a weekly basis, and this is really broken up into 2 things, and the first is mindset. And I was talking to a young client of mine, he's 24, Hayden. He's just bought his first investment property and saving very hard at the moment for his second property, which he'll buy early next year. And Hayden said that he believes that mindset is the most important thing that a lot of investors neglect, and I kind of agree. And I also kind of take it for granted because I've bought and sold and done so much activity myself and for my clients over 10 years. You kind of forget sometimes all of the little struggles that you've gone through and all of the challenges that you've had to overcome to end up in a position where you're financially free. But as I think about things, some of us are time poor, and that could be a story that we're telling ourselves in our mind. Some of us might have information overload. Some of us might have a fear of failure, or on the other side, a fear of success. And as crazy as that sounds, so many Australians are actually scared of succeeding. I was reading something this morning from Ryan on Property, and he said that less than 7.5% of Australians are property investors. And I just shook my head. Of the property investors in Australia that actually get to 3 properties, it's less than 5% of all Australian investors, and less than 1% of the Australian population. So there's a reason why so many Aussies end up broken on the pension, and that's because that's just the norm over here. It's just, well, we've got this pension in the future, or we've got a little bit of money in self-managed super that will last the first 5 or 10 years of retirement. and we'll you know, we'll have that simple life in the future. But that's not the type of life that I want to be leading personally, and I don't think it's the life that you want for yourself or your family either. If you're being truly honest with yourself, I think working your ass off for 50 years and then ending up on the pension like both of my grandmas have is a fucking joke. And I think anybody that does that, no disrespect, has not engaged in these types of videos and has not physically stood in front of the mirror and taken a look at themselves and gone, if I'm going to trade all of this time and life for money, then I want to at least have enough money to do the things that I want to do, say yes to the things that I want to say yes to, and not work the way that everybody else needs to for the rest of their lives. And if that's the first time you've heard me be brutal like that, I, you know, don't apologize, because that's just how it is. Like, you don't want to end up on the fucking pension, man. You don't want to end up on the pension, so you've got to do something about it. And changing your mindset is the best chance that you have to actually achieving some sort of financial freedom for yourself and better choices for your family in the future. So from a mindset perspective, I don't just engage in things that are going to improve me as an investor, but I engage in things that are going to improve me as a person. You know, this morning as I came to work, I was listening to an amazing thinker. His name's Wayne Dwyer. He's passed away now, unfortunately, but he is a guy that I think wrote 30 or 40 books. You know, he's one of the most influential people in that thinking world in America. He was constantly interviewed by Oprah, and one of his best friends was Oprah. Like, a really, really interesting person. And he talks about ego, he talks about attachment, he talks about spirituality, he talks about relationships and business. And, you know, I think as a mindset, the best thing you can do, particularly during the early stages, is, you know, wear off some of those sharper edges that you've either been born with, just in your natural personality type. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of sharp edges in my personality, as you'll hear from my language every now and then that come out. And then there's all of the things that we learned. You know, the thing is, in my family, we didn't grow up with a huge amount of money when I was very young, and so for a long time as an investor, my mindset was negative towards money. People that have money are bad, people that have money are greedy, or money's hard and I've got to work my ass off to achieve it, and if I stop working, then it could all come crashing down and leave me. So, you know, there's all of these mindsets that we have to work through as people. And, you know, whether it's a fear mindset, whether it's a success mindset, whether it's overconfidence, whether it's some sort of bias that you're carrying, whether it's lack of market knowledge or analysis paralysis, we've all got things in our mindset that we can work through. And so learning more about your specific field, like investing in property or stocks or whatever it is that you do, is one way to achieve those things. Another way is through experience and action. Another one is through finding mentors and role models or people that you can relate to that just tell you how it is, so that you can learn the lessons the easy way as opposed to the bloody hard way that I had to learn a lot of them myself. You know, there's so many ways that you can work on your mindset, and don't go like everyone else does and just listen to people that constantly reaffirm the way you think. Go broader, like go listen to someone like Gary Vee that just tells you straight up how it is and rams it down your throat. Go listen to a Tony Robbins who, you know, has an old way of looking at a lot of things. You know, go listen to a Richard Branson that has a soft way but a very strategic way of doing things. You know, go listen to people like Wayne Dwyer and the Eckhart Tolles and the Oprah Winfreys and the great spiritual teachers, and learn the lessons from these people. There is so much incredible stuff going on out there that you can tap into anytime you want to as an investor. So that's the first thing I do every week. I make sure my mind is in a good place, and one of the ways I do that is through my morning routine, where I try and wake up, have a nice big lemon water. I then do some stretches and some meditation if I can. I then have a good brekkie and hang out with my kids before I drop them at school Monday to Friday, and then I get stuck into my work day, and then I try and do some exercise before I get home in the evening. But on the commute to work, that is my special time where I get to plug into these amazing people like Oprah and Richard Branson and all of the other great thinkers out there, and I'm just like a sponge absorbing their things. And you know, if you can find people that you can relate to, then that message comes through a lot clearer and a lot quicker as well. So mindset's the number one thing I do on a weekly basis, and I think you should do as an investor. And the second thing is there's a, you know, big picture level thing going on with investing, and then there's also a very tactical focus thing. And the second thing is the focused tactical strategic thing, which is market updates. It's absolutely deadly for you to just stick your head in the sand and not know what's going on with the market or your investments. Now, there's a global market that, if you want to learn more about that, check out Fred Harrison's work or Phil Anderson's work. Then there's a national thing going on where there's some people doing some great commentary on what's going on in the country that you live in. And then there's the local specific stuff to your investment class. So subscribe to emails, listen to podcasts, listen to videos, read white papers, wherever you get your news from. I personally don't like the mainstream media too much because it's either boom or bust, but it is important to, keep abreast of what's going on. And, if the news is that bad, you generally get told about it from someone else. As someone who hasn't really consume mainstream news now for about 13 or 14 years, I always find out what's going on because people just love talking about the shit that doesn't matter to me. But really plug into that market update. If you're into the property industry like I am, you can plug into Heron Todd White's weekly and monthly updates. You can plug into CoreLogic or RP Data's. You can hook into Residex's, John Lindemann. There's just so many great resources out there. Michael Matusik, John from Knowledge Source. These people spend all of their time analyzing the marketplace and sharing their ideas rather than you having to go out there and find it. So the quickest way I found to digest it is just to subscribe to their blogs or subscribe to their newsletters. We do a newsletter every single week as well. If you jumped over to our website, www.pumpedonproperty, and subscribed, I share videos and ideas about this stuff, or you can listen to our podcast, the Pumped On Property Show, over there on Apple or Spotify if you want to listen to it in a different format. But keep abreast of the marketplace and keep learning, keep taking different perspectives in, but don't believe everything you hear either, you know what I mean? Whether it's me or someone else you're listening to, everyone's got a bias there. So just make sure you're not only consuming stuff that is relevant to the people you like listening to, and make sure you're consuming quality stuff that is actually going to help you make strategic decisions. Because as Charlie Munger from Berkshire Hathaway says, is the money is not made in the buying and the selling. The big money is made in the waiting. And investors, we need to learn how to be patient. I personally believe that over the next 2 years in Australia, there's going to be some of the best buying opportunities since the last GFC. And then we'll be off to the races for the second half of the real estate cycle from about 2020, 2021. But the next couple of years, if you're an actual investor, represent an amazing opportunity to buy really high quality property or really well priced stocks. If you buy the dips in the stock market, I think there's going to be some great gains to be made in the next couple of years. So get your market updates and get your mindset right. Now, I'm just going to touch briefly on the things that I think are really important that you should do on an annual basis. The first one is setting a vision for your future. Now, if you don't have a vision, it is this simple, and don't overcomplicate it any further. Whatever your current annual salary is right now, in 15 years time, you should have completely replaced that with a passive income stream for life. That's your financial vision. Just replace your income and then go from there. Now, if you want more than your current income, you'd probably already be earning it. So start with where you are. You don't have to reinvent the wheel or make it crazy big. Just start there, and then, once, I'll tell you this, if you've learned how to replace 100 or 200 or 300 grand a year salary, you can go on and make $1 million a year passive income. So if you're just starting out at 50K, go for 50, and then once you get to the next level from there, go to the next level. The next thing that I think is really important from a vision perspective is, I believe that you want a life with choice in it, and the more choices that you and I have as people, not as investors but as people, the better off the quality of our lives and other people's lives can be. Because when we all have 100% free choice that isn't governed by fear, we all do different things, and that's the beautiful thing. Some of us will go out there and volunteer. Some of us will go out there and start businesses where they share their experiences to help other people. Others will change jobs and go into more meaningful or rewarding careers for them. Other people will travel the world and sit on beaches or get pissed every single day, and that's completely cool. Like, whatever your thing is, you go and do you. As long as it's not hurting anybody else, I think fair play to anybody. But you can spend more time with your family, you can work less, you can take that year off and go around Australia or go around the world, or you can take that trip every year that you want to take with your family. You can spend more meaningful time with your partner and actually connect with them in a deep way and actually be 100% there for them. So I think your vision should be, one, replacing your current annual salary within 15 years. Now, you might say 15 years is too long. You know, go out there and be risky if that's for you, but that's not for me. I've realized after talking to 6,000 investors, 15 years for most people is achievable. 20 years is probably more realistic if you are just getting started from scratch. But it might feel like a long time, but if you're 20, 30, 40 now, think about how quick the last 15 to 20 years has passed, and that's going to be the same. So you might as well end up where you want to be with choices, which is the second thing. Get choices in your life and do what it is that is your life's calling. As the information I was listening to from Wayne Dwyer this morning said, like, don't die with that music in you. That has got to come out to the world, because if you die with that music in you, that is resentment, that is bitterment. That's what makes people bitter. And that's what makes the world a worse place, from my opinion. I hated seeing my grandma end up in the bitter state that she's in at old age, because there were some things in her life that she didn't change before it was too late. And I never want to end up like that. And I'm sure there's people in your life that are the same way, and don't be one of those people. And those people are the ones that don't take any risks, that don't make any changes. And it might feel comfortable short term, but long term the pension feels fucking uncomfortable, I'll tell you that, from seeing it from both of my grandmas. Now, the second thing that I think you should do every year is sit down and set goals at the start of the year, review those goals at the end of each month and the end of each quarter, and then reflect on those goals as well. And reflection is the missing step. Now, the story that I have about this for me personally is when I was a young little shit investor that just wanted to take over the whole world and make millions of dollars a year, and I basically did anything I possibly could to achieve what I wanted to achieve, and I burnt some bridges and I stepped on some people, and I'm not happy with the behaviors that I demonstrated at that time in my life. Like, I was so ego driven and so focused and so disciplined to the point where I missed a lot of things personally. And I feel like, looking back with retrospect, if I was reflecting on what I truly wanted and what my actual life's calling is, as opposed to just chasing short-term money, I would have been in a much better financial position now as a result of that. So make sure you don't just set goals, but you review them regularly and you keep yourself on track, or have someone else, a friend or a family member, do that for you, or your mentor or a coach. And reflect on them too. Like, my situation has changed so much. So in the last 6 years, I've moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times in the last 6 years. I've moved between houses. In the last 6 years, I've bought 7 investment properties, maybe 8. I've started 3 businesses and I've had 3 children. I've also moved from Sydney to the Sunshine Coast and had a business in Sydney that I've now moved to the Sunshine Coast. So a whole lot of shit has happened over a relatively short period of time. And the person that I was 6 years ago that just wanted to make short-term money and get financially free as quickly as I could is very different to the person I am today, which still wants those same things. You know, I realize there's no short-term money anymore, but wants to spend time with the people I care about and wants to have a meaningful impact on other investors' lives so that they can go out there and do the things that are important to them. So, you know, by reflecting and by taking a moment or taking a breath to actually look at what you've done and think about strategically where you're going to go, and then to know that where you've gone has given you experience and where you're going gives you motivation, but to just live in the present and give the present moment as an investor absolutely everything you can, I promise you that everything will work out and that you will be able to achieve your dreams, your goals, your desires, and have those choices in your life that you're truly looking for. So I think there are 3 things that investors can do a lot better, and most people, myself included, can do them a lot better. You know, if you look at the day-to-day, we're just talking about learning. If we're looking at the weekly stuff, it's really about mindset and continuously improving your mind so that the stories you're telling yourself are in alignment with your values and in alignment with your actions as an investor, so that that fear eventually goes away. And the second thing on a weekly basis is that market update. It's very, very important to keep your finger on the pulse and realize that part of it's setting an intention of where you want to go, but there's a whole lot of fucking hard work that you actually have to do as well, and you can't just sit on your hands and do nothing and expect to get where you want to be. And then on an annual basis, understand your vision for the year, for the next 10 years, set your goals, review those goals, and most importantly, reflect on those goals. If a goal doesn't feel right that you set and you no longer want to achieve it, take a step back from it, park it, put it into a ideas for the future list, and maybe you come back to it, maybe you don't. But you don't have to achieve every single thing that you set out to do. You can pivot with better information and move forward in a better way. So, hope you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this YouTube channel where I put out this stuff, which is sort of my just personal take on investing. I'm just going to be very, very, very real with these videos from today forward and talk about the things that are actually important to me. I'm going to take off more and more of the mask that I've been carrying around as an investor over the last 10 years, and hopefully we can grow together and you can go out there and, using some of this information, achieve much, much, much better investment results for yourself and for your family so that you have choices. So thank you so much and good luck with your investment journey.